when the invitations to this conference were sent out to discuss a replacement for the Pollack Security Council, the American president was regarded still as the leader of the free world. But today, we find a very different view of America, thanks to that president's voting with Russia and with China to refuse to condemn the wicked invasion of Ukraine, which has by now caused 500,000 deaths and dismemberments, both to his people and to the people of Ukraine, who are fighting essentially for democracy. And unless Europe and other countries step up to the plate, they will lose that fight. And the fight for others may well be lost as a result. We may, as Europeans, as I speak as a British, regarding myself again as European, we lament the withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord, from the World Health Service, from UNESCO, I think will be the next. And of course, the cutting back section of US aid, which has already caused hundreds of deaths to people who America once cared for and now does not. But I think the saddest and most relevant action of the Trumpists is to attack, not just ignore, but attack the International Criminal Court. This is largely a construct of America. If we think back to Nuremberg, which was its legacy, thanks to Truman and Justice Jackson, Nuremberg happened and provided a wonderful example. And we think of the American scholars and judges who made such a contribution through the ad hoc courts and then, of course, to the ICC. Their work, and it's work that David Schaefer, Diane Orendlicher, the Clintons, of course, should be celebrated. But it can't live on unless it is demeaned by the present American government. Now, I think we all watched last night the work that is being done heroically by human rights defenders, by people in Ukraine, preparing for the prosecution of those perpetrators of the 150,000 war crimes. While we were watching, at that very time, the US Department of Justice announced that it was withdrawing from the International Center for the Prosecution of the Crime of Aggression in Ukraine. That center was supported financially by the Biden administration, by the Council of Europe. And now it will lack the American prosecutors who were working with it, with the ICC, and with the Ukrainian prosecutors to prepare those cases. So it may be that the effort that we all applauded last night will go for naught. It is a tragedy because the ICC is still important. It is, we saw a few days ago, your dictator taken to The Hague, to Sheringham prison, for killing thousands of people as if in sport, who were mere suspects. Well, of course, if he was stupid and his lawyers were stupid because all he needed to do to avoid the ICC arrest warrant was to go to America. There he will be safe, thanks to Trump's executive order. America will become a haven for dictators, for those war criminals indicted by the ICC and enabled to find safety in America. Well, we are where we are. The confusion that has been caused by the they, won't they attitude to the Trumpists is one thing, but there remains a determination of states to do something to protect democracy. And here's the odd thing, because democracy is nowhere mentioned in the United Nations Charter. It is not protected in any way under international law. It is a value that we all adhere to, but which has no substance in law or in the United Nations. The sabotage, if you like, of democracy by the mean-minded malevolence that is coming from American leaders towards their old allies is sad, but we must look to what we have and what we can improve upon. The story really starts, as the film showed, with the collapse of the United Nations, the collapse of the League of Nations in 1938. People said, what can we replace it with? And there was a lot of support for the idea of H.G. Wells, that great visionary, who said, we must have a democratic, we must have a people's, parliamentary people's organization bound by a Bill of Rights. Well, that seemed to be appropriate at a time when, or at least realizable, at a time when Hitler and Stalin were meeting and working out how to carve up Poland. Rather, as in a few minutes, President Trump will be talking on the telephone to Vladimir Putin and working out how to carve up parts of Ukraine. But it couldn't happen, of course, once Russia became an ally, the most important ally of all. And so at the Yalta Conference was accorded a seat at the table, followed a few years later by China. And that means that the Security Council has two vetoes of any action that the United Nations takes. The plan, as it turned out, was a United Nations where the General Assembly is really something of a talking shop. All power is vested in the Security Council, and nothing that disquietens Russia or China can get through because it will be vetoed. Russia vetoes all resolutions about a ceasefire in Ukraine, just as America vetoes all resolutions that discomforts Israel. So that means, with that poleaxing in effect, there is no way forward to peace. The United Nations Charter begins by saying that the purpose of this organization is to protect against the slaughter of war. Well, much protection it has accorded to the 20 wars that go on at the moment. It's unable to act largely because of the veto. So the scourge of war that appears in the Charter is not effective. It goes on to say its first objective is the suppression of acts of aggression. And of course, it can't do that because of the veto that Russia has. We have a definition of aggression in the ICC in 2018. And it's a definition that fits Vladimir Putin like a glove. But, of course, it can't be used against him because he's not one of the countries, there are only 45 of them, that have signed up to accept the prosecution for aggression. 45 countries that would never consider aggressing because they are, in fact, democracies. So there is the problem that we face with the United Nations, ineffective at the moment because largely of the Security Council veto. So can Europe step up to the plate? That's one of the issues that we'll decide. We have, in many cases, talk at the moment in many forums about how it can do so. France and England have promised some kind of nuclear umbrella under which countries, democracies can work if they are organized. There are other countries outside Europe. There is India, there is Brazil, there is Japan, powerful countries that can join a democratic, what would not be a world Security Council, because it would not include those countries that are not democracies. But, of course, it would include many powerful countries who could, if they were encased in a union, could raise the flag for democracy and could provide support and support not only in military and in moral support, but could establish a court that would decide on issues of great importance that the ICJ is prevented, for reasons I won't go into because they're too technical, of acting. So that is what we will discuss at this conference, whether there is a way forward, a new world order, a protection for the first time in history of democracy, which provides the great issues of the great importance to people in democratic countries, the importance of free and fair elections, the importance of freedom of speech, and the importance of independent and impartial judges. Thank you.